Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. And if you're celebrating Christmas, well, tomorrow's Christmas Eve and then Sunday is the big day. And so that means you've got about 3 days or so where you might want to watch a holiday movie. I'm sure you've been watching many already, but I'm often asked to talk about older movies, so I thought this would be a fun opportunity for me to recommend 5 holiday films. These aren't necessarily the top 5 holiday films, but they're the ones that I'm kind of feeling at the moment and that I recommend to you. And I think there are a couple on here you might not have watched yet, and I think maybe some that you definitely already have because they're such iconic classics, but I thought that it would be nice to point them out. And I would also ask you down below to recommend holiday movies yourself to everyone else, because last night I was trying to find one to watch, and I almost watched Batman Returns, but I was like, oh, I feel like I have a big stack of comic books to read, and I was like, it's going to be overkill. It's too much stuff, too much comic book stuff. I want to have like a variety of Hollywood and holiday entertainment from Hollywood. So I think it would be nice to kind of compile a list down below on top of the 5 I'm going to recommend here of movies, of holiday movies that we'd all recommend. So be sure to put one down below and also why you recommend it. All right, so the first one I want to recommend is It's a Wonderful Life from Frank Capra, who many times was considered, promoting uncapitalistic mantras through his films. And I think to some degree that's true. But I think It's a Wonderful Life, and Frank Capra is a wonderful filmmaker, albeit a political one. But I think It's a Wonderful Life is an absolutely fabulous movie because of its hero, George Bailey. Now, I've had a love-hate relationship with this movie for many years, and I was very angry for a long time at the way George Bailey was treated. I felt that he was a prop in other people's ideal lives. People had a very distinct idea. I mean, George Bailey's an awesome guy, so of course everybody wants a piece of George. But they never thought about what George wanted, even though George was very vocal about what he wanted. I thought that it was really horrible that everybody was taking advantage of his kindness, that he wasn't willing to let people down. So that always frustrated me. I was like, I would have let George follow his dreams. But the last couple of times I've watched the movie, I've had some revelations about it, right? So the first one is that I used to think that they exaggerated about how evil Mr. Potter is in the film. I was like, nobody could be that evil. But then, as many of you know, I had some mold problems with apartments that I've had in the past, and the people that I dealt with were so Mr. Potter-like. I was like, well, it appears that they were not exaggerating. So I think that's important to show. And I think particularly maybe today, with what we're worrying about with, let's say the 1%, I think that it's still obviously a very relevant message. Then I think there's a very important message in the film also about the importance of community and self-sacrifice, and that someone needs to step up and to try and pull the community together and fight people like Mr. Potter, even if it's reluctantly, like George Bailey. And you can see in the film what would happen if he weren't to do that. That's the whole point of the movie. And I think that we don't have enough George Baileys in the world these days. I have my Assassin's Creed review coming later today, and one very telling thing that they say in the movie is they're trying to control free will, and they're like, oh, we're kind of there, the villains of the piece, and they're like, we're kind of there already, because with consumerism, people just want to protect what they have, and they don't care about the larger group. And I was like, that's sad, and I think maybe in some ways, if not totally true, it's becoming a truth. And so I think that makes It's a Wonderful Life even more important and relevant today. I'd also say that it shows that love and respect from the community are just as wonderful as the monetary riches that one could reap just focusing on themselves. I wouldn't go so far as George Bailey, who's has a very tortured existence, but I think that if all of us were just like a little bit like George Bailey, or even 50% like George Bailey, the world would be a much better place. And George Bailey wouldn't have to sacrifice so much because everybody would be contributing. So I think that's wonderful. It's a wonderful life. All right. So the next movie I would recommend is Arthur Christmas. I just watched this the other day. It makes me cry at the end of the film every time. And I know there are a lot of movies about Santa. I'd also watched The Santa Claus, which was oddly similar to Jingle All the Way, which I also recently watched. So I was like, these are too similar. But Arthur Christmas is a great movie that maybe at first glance you might be like, is this just about nepotism at the North Pole? No. It's about the burden of the mantle of Santa Claus. And it's a little bit like The Crown on Netflix, which I'll be reviewing between Christmas and New Year's. But, it's the burden, again, the burden of the mantle. But also, I think that one of the wonderful messages about the movie that really impressed me every time is it stresses the importance of the act itself over being able to claim the achievement of the act. I think that's really commendable. And, to make sure that your heart is in the right place and to explore why you're doing things and why you want to do them. I just think and also it's so rare, so often today with nepotism and it's all who you know. It's really nice to see a discussion about, well, who's the right person for the job? I think that's really important, and I love that this movie emphasizes that. It's from Aardman Animation. I wish it had done better at the box office because it's them trying to move from stop motion to computer animation. I think they did a wonderful job. And if you get the Blu-ray, it has wonderful extras on it about the making of the movie. And I wish that they were able. I mean, you can just see the talent at Aardman, and I'm quite sad that they aren't allowed to progress. All right, so next up, Elf. Everybody loves Elf, and that's one of the reasons that I'm so impressed with the film is that it's rare for a recent holiday movie to have any staying power, right? I mean, Elf is, I think, the last really big instant Christmas classic that's been made, and I wish that Hollywood made more holiday movies. But so I'm so glad that Jon Favreau and Will Ferrell contributed Elf to our holiday movie collection. And it's really well made. It's an early example of Jon Favreau's craftsmanship as a director. I mean, the thing is it's not too flashy, but it knows exactly what it wants to be. It's very much based on speaking of claymation, based on the stop motion, Christmas shorts like Rudolph, etc. And I think that gives it an instant cozy quality as well. But it has, I like the humor because it's it's a little biting. It's like, it doesn't go so far as like say Family Guy, so it can't be all ages entertainment. It definitely qualifies as that, but it feels like it's zingy enough that it feels current and fresh. So I really think that's great. I think the casting is wonderful. Will Ferrell is perfect as Buddy the Elf. James Caan is great as his father. That's really wonderful casting. And Zooey Deschanel is used expertly here, from her acting to her singing. It has every time the ending comes on, I get so excited. It really gets me, and I also think it really does a nice job capturing the magic of Christmas in New York City. So I think Elf's a fantastic movie. I actually purchased it this year. All right, so then next up, Die Hard, which if you follow me on Instagram, I've already watched this year. What a Christmas movie. I see some of you debating whether or not it's actually a Christmas movie, and I think that it is. Some movies, particularly in the 90s, and Iron Man 3 copied this because Shane Black, rose to prominence in the 90s, and he kind of did this with Lethal Weapon, is that Shane Black and Lethal Weapon and Iron Man 3 will just throw Christmas in the background. Not with Die Hard. Die Hard is very much uses Christmas. He's at a Christmas party. That's the whole setup for the film, John McClane, aka Bruce Willis. So Christmas is very much woven throughout the film. Talk about the original Office Christmas Party movie, and it's really well done. It's a fantastic action movie, and it's really well crafted and acted. But the most impressive thing about Die Hard is the script. The script is really fantastic. There's not an ounce of fat on the Die Hard script. Everything is beautifully set up. Every line is important. Every moment is important. And they do a wonderful job building the tension, laying the clues and the crumbs, and then having wonderful payoffs. If you're interested in filmmaking, it's a particularly good thing to watch. And also the use of a single location, which is a dream come true for filmmakers and producers because it helps with the budget. It's just really well done. It's a fabulous movie. It could not be better. And it features star-making turns for Bruce Willis, who at the time was coming off of moonlighting with Sybil Shepherd, a popular TV show, but this is what made him a movie star. And of course, it made Alan Rickman everyone's favorite villain overnight, something that he tragically passed away recently. But this is the role that he will always be remembered for. And he went on to do Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner off of this. And it's interesting because Ben Mendelsohn was just signed to play the same role in the upcoming Robin Hood opposite Taron Egerton. And Ben Mendelsohn, of course, is coming off of a fantastic turn as a villain in Rogue One. So Die Hard, I cannot recommend it highly enough. All right, so then finally, Home Alone, the Christmas movie. It never gets old. And I love that it's such a old John Hughes movie, but that every Christmas this and Elf were the highest trending on iTunes, the watch list recently, the last couple of times I've checked. So that goes to show you how important they are. It's been copied a lot lately. Skyfall did a total Home Alone, right, at the end of the film. And then also, though, I think you can appreciate the message it has about family, that everyone has frustrations with their family, particularly at the holidays, but that you have to, I think the discussion between Kevin and his neighbor, the scary neighbor across the way in church, when they're watching the choir rehearse, is one of the best discussions I've ever seen about family in a movie. And so it's just wonderful. And it's a great mix, though. It's got that great message, it's got family drama, hijinks, and also it's a bit of a caper, of course, with Marv and Harry, the two burglars that target Kevin. And they're genuinely dangerous. And so I think that keeps the movie from seeming too soft, and I think that's what's kept it very current. It's, I think, John Hughes' biggest hit, and of course it made Chris Columbus famous. He then went on to do the Harry Potter movies eventually, but nothing has ever lived up to Home Alone. And also, it's fun is, again, from a filmmaking perspective, if you've watched the movie so many times like I have, to kind of break it down sometimes about when they shot everything. You can be like, okay, well, all these scenes were shot together, because they don't move the camera. They're not like, we're going to come back to the hallway. They have to shoot everything at once in the hallway. Also, look at the set design. The set design on Home Alone is amazing. The way they weave the feeling of Christmas throughout everyone's clothes and the furniture and the fabrics, everything. You can just see that they're doing a really good job giving it, like, soaking it in this Christmas feel. Subtly, though. Really great. Also, I feel very bad for Macaulay Culkin. He's very good in the movie. Of course, never has been able to escape the role, although I think that he's, made some poor choices in an effort to try. He's tried to pull a Miley Cyrus to some degree, but not as good. But I've always felt they should make a sequel to Home Alone. They have, of course, but I'm saying a sequel recently where Kevin McAllister opens his own high-tech security company, and takes down criminals with today's technology. Because he do what you love and what you have the skill set for, and he obviously has a special talent when it comes to defending his home. All right, so I'm curious, what are your favorite holiday movies? Be sure to share them down below. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and you can check out some other videos right now.